This is the Get Out the Vote virtual town hall in partnership with Radio 1, the Marion County Clerk's Office, Marion County Voter Registration, and the Office of Public Health and Safety. Representatives from each agency will discuss planning your vote during this pandemic, knowing your voting rights, especially for those with a criminal history, and knowing your voting registration status. The Get Out the Vote virtual town hall starts right now. Here's your host, Tina Cosby.
And good afternoon, everyone. I am Tina Cosby with AM 1310 and 92.7 FM The Light, host of Community Connection. I'd like to welcome you all to our virtual voters town hall. And I would like to start off with an introduction of our esteemed panel. And I have to say, it feels like we're getting the band back together because earlier this week, this exact panel was on my show on Community Connection, and we had a great time and ran out of time. So we're going to try to be as efficient as we possibly can with these next 30 minutes. So here with us today on this panel are our Marion County Clerk, Mila Eldridge. Also on the panel today, Miss LaDonna Freeman. She is the Democratic Director of the Marion County Board of Voter Registration. And we have Carlette Duffy, Director of Reentry for the City of Indianapolis Office of Public Health and Safety. Ladies, again, the band is back together. I'm so happy. And it's been less than a week, so we're all back together. It's great. And by the way, hi, how's everybody doing?
Awesome.
Good. I wanted to wish everyone a happy National Black Voter Day. Today is National Black Voter Day.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
It is. It's a great day to remind African American voters and voters in general that we matter. So, we want to get right to it because we only have 30 minutes, and I know a lot of people are going to be asking questions, and we want to make sure that we get to as many questions as possible. But we're going to cover basically three areas: voters' rights for ex-offenders, how to vote during the pandemic, and of course how to register to vote. So let's start with voter registration. Why is it important for everyone to check their status with voter registration and to make sure that they are indeed registered to vote as they thought they were registered to vote?
Okay, she's on mute. LaDonna, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Yeah, we're going. Yeah, LaDonna just has to unmute. Hold on. We're gonna stop right there because we're gonna have to have you start from the beginning. Are you unmuted yet, LaDonna? Okay, can she unmute? While she's unmuting, Clerk Eldridge, would you like to take some? I know she was saying a few things, but the importance of registering to vote.
It's very important that for the upcoming election, that a voter does their homework, right? Number one, have a plan for voting. And what does that look like? Well, first of all, make sure that you are a registered voter. And if you are not a registered voter, then a person has until October the 5th to get registered to vote. Now, if you are already a registered voter, what I would encourage voters to do is just call the voter registration office and just check and make sure that there's nothing incomplete with your voting registration, and make sure that you are on the voter roll and there is no problem with your voter registration, so that when you go to the polls to vote, you don't have any problems.
Yeah. So, Mila, I want to get back to a point that you were making about a plan. Your chief deputy, Mr. Russell Hollis, also a good friend of Community Connection, he shared with us a couple of weeks ago that every voter should have their plan in place no later than October 4th. No later than October 4th. And when he talked about a plan, and then you mentioned a plan, can you expand a little bit on what the plan is? And I guess it could go right down to how you're going to get there. So what should the plan entail?
Absolutely. The plan should be if you plan to vote by mask or by mail. So
mask or mail. Okay.
Mask or mail. So if you're planning to vote by mask, that means you're planning to vote in person. And a voter can vote in person at any one of our 6 at a vote center on election day. Now, if a voter is planning to vote by mask, that just simply means that you're planning to vote absentee by mail.
So, and as far as, have your plan together. And as he said, no later than October 4th, because obviously October 5th is the last day of voter registration. So indeed,
That is
absolutely.
correct.
So we're still working with getting LaDonna's microphone opened, and that's one of the interesting things with the technology that we are all now captive of, with the Zoom and StreamYards and all of the different ones. Sometimes they cooperate with us, and sometimes they don't. So hopefully we can get LaDonna back into the conversation very, very shortly. So one of the other topics that we were going to talk about, that we did talk about on the show when you were all there, was offender and offender voting rights. And that is a very complex subject. It's a very emotional subject. So Carlette, please take it away.
Well, and one of the passions that I've had for a long time, and I used to work with a bunch of wonderful, wonderful people, and Mila said this on the radio last time, and I can't believe I forgot to even mention it, that we started doing this with two of my wonderful, wonderful friends. Lori Wright is one, and Dave Rozelle, who used to be the director of ICAM, so which is the Indianapolis Commission on African American Males. And this was a passion of all of ours. And back in 2007 was the first time that we did it under Sheriff Frank Anderson. And we went into the jail and we registered everyone that was eligible to vote. And we also assisted them with completing their absentee ballot. And the reason that we were able to do that is because the law states that if you are in jail but not under a conviction, you can vote. So as long as you are not serving time under a conviction, you can vote. The fact that you can't either afford to bond out, or you have a bail revocation, or your bail has been revoked, then that should not preclude you from being able to exercise your rights. So we want to make sure that everyone there has their right to vote, and we'll be doing that again this year, tomorrow. So for this upcoming election. And then for anyone who is out in the community, if you are not incarcerated in prison, you can vote. So if you are on community corrections, you can vote. If you are on work release, if you are on probation, parole, whether it's federal or state, in the state of Indiana, you can vote. If you have a conviction from another state, and even if that state does not allow you to vote, in Indiana, you can vote. If you are a resident of Indiana, you can vote in Indiana.
Yeah. And residency is explained, or is defined as what?
Basically, you've lived in your residence for the last 30 days. So if you live here and you have your state of Indiana ID, which is free right now, the ID, not driver's license, but the ID is free. You can get a free ID and you can vote.
What about the level of the felony? Because that seems to be an issue that we have heard listeners call in about as well. Like, I have, my felony level is this and that. Can I still vote if I have a higher level felony than someone else?
It does not matter. Does not matter the classification, whether it's a misdemeanor, a felony, even if it's classified as murder, which would be the highest. You can vote.
You can vote. And basically, you had to have established residency for the last 30 days and show proof of residency, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the stumbling blocks that ex-offenders could run into as they go to vote, including perhaps the ID or what have you?
Well, the biggest thing is just making sure that they have the valid ID, because that is the biggest problem that I've heard from people, and that the word valid, because even when you try to go online at indianavoters.in.gov, you try to go online and update your voter registration. If your ID is not valid, because it automatically connects to the BMV, it will not allow you to update. So you have to have a valid ID in order to do your online update to your voter registration or to register to vote. So if you don't have a valid driver's license, you can get an ID. Now, you can't have an ID and a driver's license at the same time, but you can get an ID so that it is valid and in place in order for you to vote.
Another hot button question. Does the Red Star Real ID validate your ID to vote? Do you have to have that Red Star on your driver's license to be able to vote?
No. No, and I just would like to add to what Colette has already said. I think it's important for whoever's watching or listening to know that as long as it is a state-issued ID, that you can use it, or a passport. However, it has to be an ID, though, that is issued in the county where you are registered. So I think that's important, and I think it's important to know that there are requirements, because we have one of the strictest voter ID laws in the land, and you need to know what those requirements are. And a state-issued ID, a driver's license, and a passport actually all meet all the requirements. But I think it's important for our voters to just make sure that their IDs are valid and have the right expiration date on them, and two, that they're from Marion County, if you are a registered voter in Marion County.
Because a lot of people we had a call that was somewhat confusing, is that the person lived in another county but wanted to vote in Marion County. You can't do that. You have to vote where you live, correct?
Where you're registered.
Where you're registered to vote. Okay. Donna, you with us now? Can you hear us now?
She's having.
Yeah. No, we're still having some issues. We're gonna keep working on it. We'll get our little toolbox out and keep working on it. Well, I tell you what, the virtual is amazing. So, in terms of voter registration, how complicated is that, and how difficult is that for people to be able to do? What's the process?
To register to vote?
Yes.
It's not a difficult process at all. A voter can actually, or someone that would like to register to vote can actually register online because of modern technology, and they can also still register by filling out the voter registration form. However, I just would, unfortunately, that LaDonna cannot be on here. I wish she could call in, maybe, but I think it's important for voters to know that we have a voter registration office that is here to serve the people of Marion County, and they can call that office and ask any questions or get any information that they need so that they can participate in the election on November the 3rd. But the process to register to vote is not difficult. You just have to have an address. If you are homeless, you can also vote. However, of course, there are some requirements for you, because you have to have an address so that voter registration can mail your voter registration card to an address. But if you are homeless, I want to be very clear that it does not. Oh, here she is. Oh, this is wonderful. LaDonna.
Okay.
Here, so I'm gonna
yeah.
We're gonna make it work. Make it work.
We make it do what it do, as they say. Make it. It's gonna work. It's gonna work.
To just kind of tag team on what Mila was saying, I think that when you're with the homeless situation, wonderful organizations like Horizon House and Wheeler Mission allow their address to be used by the homeless in order to register to vote.
Oh, wow.
They have a voice as well.
And a lot of people didn't know. I just learned that. I had no idea, because that's a very interesting point. It's a very good point, because if you are homeless and I'm not necessarily living on the street, some people that might be staying with relatives or friends or in different community centers or what have you. Yeah, they need to use what as an address?
They can go to one of the shelters. So Wheeler Mission is definitely one, but I know Horizon House also assists. It's a daytime shelter that serves the homeless. So they can definitely go to Horizon House and use their address to be registered to vote.
Okay, so thank you, Colette. LaDonna, welcome back.
Wow,
can you
thank you.
Okay, we got you. So we were talking about voter registration. What's voter registration traffic like so far? I mean, are we getting a lot of people registering to vote in Marion County, and how's it going? And what are your
We're
rights?
getting, the numbers are increasing with voter registration, but a lot of people are registered. They're just changing their address. They're transferring their address. So as far as new voters, I haven't seen an increase in new voters, first-time voters, but I have seen an increase in people moving from one area to the next.
Yeah, indeed. So what are your rights to register to vote? What are your absolute rights? Carlette touched on it in one area, but what are your rights?
Your rights to register to vote. If you'll be 18 by the election this year, you have a right to register to vote. If you are homeless, you can register to vote. And being homeless is when you're filling out the application of being homeless, you have to put homeless as your residence address. You must have a mailing address. And at the bottom of the form, there's a diagram for you to draw where you are sleeping at. If you're sleeping under a bridge, you have to put those cross sections on the voter registration form. If you have been incarcerated and are no longer have completed your time, you can register to vote. If you're walking out here on parole or probation,
House
or
arrest, bracelet.
facility, you can register to vote.
Okay.
So if you moved, change your name, moved to Marion County, new to Marion County, you should register and vote.
So a question from one of our viewers. Do you consider the United States Postal Service a safe method to mail in a ballot, especially for homebound seniors and caregivers?
Tell the host to add. You're in the show, everyone can see. Okay, I'm here now. We're all here.
Well, now we got to go.
Perfect. Okay, I'm sorry because I am just joining again. What was the question?
The question is, do you consider the United States Postal Service a safe method to mail in a ballot, especially for homebound seniors and caregivers?
I would say that this United States Postal Service has guaranteed us that they realize how important this election is and that there will be no issues with delivering ballots for voters that have voted absentee by mail. However, what I would say, though, is that if you see that we're close to, at least I'm going to say 15 days out from the election, and you have not mailed your absentee ballot or you have not received it, I probably would recommend that a voter hand delivers their ballot. I get that the purpose of voting by mail is to be able to mail your ballot back, right? But under these current conditions, if you want to know that your ballot is going to be counted and received by the noon deadline before on election day, I think it's great that voters have options, and that is an option. But yeah. I'm not super concerned about the United States Postal Service doing their job by delivering absentee ballots or making sure that we receive them on time.
Yeah. And the question, about seniors and caregivers, and their question, the follow-up to that question was, what are the alternatives? So I think you pretty much answered that. What is the interest in, and what is the traffic so far around early votings and absentee ballots? What's the response been?
I'm sorry. What was the question again? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
What has the response been in terms of requests for mail-in ballots, absentee voting?
We have had a very high volume of requests already for absentee voting. We have seen where voters have actually already applied online to request an absentee ballot by mail. And we expect that number to be higher. For the primary election, we probably had close to over 100,000 voters request an absentee ballot. So we are prepared and expected for that number to probably be even higher for the general election.
And how would you compare the interest right now to 2016? Are we right about the same spot? Are we like twice where we were this time in 2016? Or what do you think?
We're more. The numbers are higher right now than we were in 2016.
By how much do you think?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna be honest with you. By Saturday, we probably will have mailed out 40,000 absentee ballots. We've already mailed out close to, I know, probably 15 or maybe 20,000 already.
So what does this tell you? And anybody can jump in. What does this say to you? The numbers, what does that say to you?
It says to me that this is a presidential election and it's a very important presidential election, and that voters are fired up and paying attention and want to participate in the democracy that serves them. And that's exciting. That energizes me actually to do what I do, because I think it's important that we participate in the democracy that serves us. And it also gives us an opportunity to bring about change, because change happens at the ballot box if we fully utilize our right to vote.
Indeed, indeed. I'm sorry. Was somebody wanting to ask? I'm getting a little bit of a delay. LaDonna, you were about to say something. Hello. Okay,
Can you hear me?
LaDonna?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I want to say, and people are wanting to make sure that they're registered to vote, because they're checking to make sure that they're calling about the addresses. They want to know if they're at the current address where they reside in. So we're getting calls of people wanting to know what to do to change their address. Some of people don't have computers to go to indianavoters.com. So our office will actually mail you out the voter registration application, and we'll send a return envelope to them so they can send it back.
When you go to vote, what do you need to know in terms of something is fishy when you're at the table? Meaning, how will you know that something is not right when you go to vote? What are some of the signs that people should watch for in terms of people trying to persuade you not to vote? Signs of voter suppression. Okay, go ahead.
I will say this, because I'm an elected PC for my district, and every election cycle, I work my precinct when it's open. So because they've shrunk.
Okay.
Since the pandemic, the number of open precincts. But one thing that has always been the case under Beth White and now under Mila is that the election staff that's there are very knowledgeable, and number one, and number two, they have access to attorneys. So if anyone feels like their rights are being infringed upon, or they're being forced to do something that they don't want to do, or they feel like something is off in any kind of way, they can inform the election staff. And if there's a question to any of it that cannot be solved at that point in time, they can call an attorney, and an attorney will take care of it right then and there. And if need be, they'll come down and show up, because there are a number of attorneys that volunteer to do this work. So that's not something that I think for our precincts or not even our precincts, but for Marion County, that has been an issue. Good. In terms of anyone feeling like they are being infringed upon, just because that level of protection has always been there.
Yeah, indeed. So let's talk about on election day, safe things to do and vote centers. What is it that people need to know about the vote centers? Because I know they were limited in number for the primary. For the general, and is not going to be the case in Indianapolis and Marion County, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, let's
talk
about vote centers.
Yes, that is correct. But also, too, I would like to kind of like talk, just mention briefly, though, about voters that feel like, or people actually that say their vote doesn't count. How, for me, convincing them that your vote does count, and how important that it is that you do register and that you do participate in the democracy that serves you, because that is your voice. Like I said, change happens at the ballot box. And if we're not participating in the election process, then we don't have a voice. So I just think, for me, what I've been hearing over the years is too, that if I could just encourage someone to know that your vote does count, and how important it is that you do register to vote, and you cast your ballot. So I just wanted to share that. But about voting on election day, like when you have your plan in place, know that my team and I are working extremely hard and to make sure that everyone is safe. You know, they say wear a mask because it not only protects you, it protects everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So we want you to wear your mask. We're going to have all the PPE that we need to make sure our poll workers are safe, and that voters that will wear a mask, we will have masks for voters on election day. We will continue to implement the 6 feet social distancing rule. We will also be cleaning, disinfecting, right? The machines after each voter uses a machine, and following the CDC guidelines, just like we did for the primary election. So nothing has changed. We will have trained, I'm going to call them health inspectors at every vote center on election day, just to make sure that voters are abiding by the CDC guidelines, so that we have a safe and successful election. And we want every voter to know that we care and that we're doing everything that we possibly can to make sure that everyone is safe.
Yeah. So somebody shows up on election day to a vote center, one of the 188 vote centers, and there's a line. What advice for them?
If there's a line, my advice to them would be patient, and know that if you be patient, that we're going to work extremely hard to get you in and out as soon as possible. And I'm going to be honest with you, since Marion County became a vote center county, and that's a good thing, a voter can go to any of the 187 vote centers on election day and cast their ballot. Just like our satellite locations, a voter is not tied to a location. They can go anywhere. So if there is a line, you have options. Again, I'd like to say I'm a clerk of options, and I like to make sure that our voters have options.
Indeed, there definitely are options. And so a lot of options, actually, because there's mail-in ballots, there is early voting, and then there is voting on election day. Let's get back to the middle here, early voting, which is probably coming up next because it's already underway with the mail-in ballots. Early voting, that will be underway daily at the City County building starting on October 6th.
That is correct. The day after the voter registration deadline, early voting will begin in the City County building in the clerk's office.
Yeah, and it started in a number of states already today, and the lines have just been absolutely incredible. Now, at what point will the satellite voting centers or satellite early vote centers open, and where will those be?
Satellite voting locations.
Mm-hmm.
See, I can't hear you guys.
Okay, we were asking about the satellite voting centers. When will they open?
Satellite voting locations begin the 2 weeks prior to the election. They will be open during the week and on the weekends, and it's the 2 weeks prior to election. Now, and I would like to also be very clear that the clerk's office in the City County building will be open on, as I call it, and I've called it this since I became clerk, Election Eve, and that is the Monday prior to election. So November the 2nd, we're open until noon. The satellite locations close the Sunday before, so a voter cannot cast a ballot or vote at a satellite location after Sunday, but they can come down to the clerk's office in the City County building and vote until noon, and that is by statute.
Okay, so we are wrapping, we're coming down to our last 4 or 5 minutes, but before we do, I want each of you to summarize what it is that you want to make sure our listeners and viewers know and see. And I also want to make sure that you can share with them, from each of you, resources, where they can go, where they can get help, who they can call, websites and things of that nature. And we'll start with you, LaDonna.
Okay. I just want to say it is important to check your registration so that it's up to date with the correct address and name, so that you can vote in the upcoming election. The deadline is October the 5th. Please go online to indianavoters.com to check your status. Call our office at 317-327-5040. You have until 11:59 p.m. to register to vote up until October the 5th. Your application must be postmarked with the October the 5th date, or you can come into our office. We're open till 4:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay? Carlette.
There are going to be a number of voter registration tables and sites and assistance all around the city. I know our violence reduction team is hard at work doing a number of voter registration informationals all around the city, and so will the reentry team as well. So we want to make sure that they know Office of Public Health and Safety is out there. If you see a booth, you see a pop-up at a park. I know the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus is also doing them in the parks. Then go over and talk to them, ask questions, and they can help you to fill out whatever it is. And just to tag a little bit on what Mila said in terms of making sure, or whether or not you're concerned, whether or not your vote counts. What I always say to people is, tell me how many votes does it take to make it actually count. However many they say, it doesn't matter, because in order to get to that number, what the first number you start with is 1. So you are that number 1 to get to 20, 30, 50,000, 50 million, if that's what you think it takes in order for it to make a difference.
Absolutely. And for one, and if you have a felony in the state of Indiana, please do not stay home. Please do not let anybody tell you you cannot vote.
Exactly. You can vote, and you should use your right to vote.
All righty. Thank you, Carlette. And Clerk Eldridge, I'll give you the final word.
Thank you. I would like to say again, thank you for this opportunity, but more so than anything, I just want our voters to have a plan. Know who will be on your ballot. Go to the voter information portal, educate yourself, do the research on the candidates and the issues that they represent, and get your people to vote with you. Show up and cast your vote, and consider early voting. Thank you.
Consider early voting, indeed. That's my play. I mean, you know what? If there is a platform, and I shouldn't have one, I don't know. But I cannot emphasize enough the importance of early voting. It just takes care of so much. And if we could just get that if we could get that play together, I think that we could make a huge difference if everyone could early vote. I just do. But voting is important too on Election Day, which is November the 3rd, Tuesday, November the 3rd. The time to vote on Tuesday, November the 3rd, is it still 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you're in line and the time is 6:20, do you still get to vote?
If you're in line, yes. Yes, if you are in line, if you arrive after 6 o'clock, no, you do not get to vote. But if you're in line, already in line, and it's after 6 p.m., yes, a voter still has the right to vote.
I think Election Day should be a national holiday.
Me too.
I agree.
I think it should be so that's going to be our next discussion. We're all going to get together and we're going to make sure that they make Election Day a national holiday. LaDonna Freeman, Carlette Delphi, Mila Eldridge, ladies, thank you all so very much. Thank you for what you do. And again, hopefully we'll be talking with you soon. And hey, we're going to have a fantastic election season. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.